So we're going to see how to weigh out the KHP. The KHP, we need about 0.2 to 0.3 grams of it. So Jim's going to go ahead and tear the weighing boat first. So I'll put that on, he'll zero it. Notice how he closes the door at the end of each time, that's great. Okay, go ahead. Right, now we're going to, you'll notice what he's doing here is he's weighing the KHP while it's not on the actual balance. Now I know what you're saying, well, you know, how are we supposed to know exactly how much we're adding if we're not adding it on the balance? Well, the reason I don't want you to add it on the balance is because it gets messy. And Jim's going to be, well, he's trying to be careful, but you'll notice that he's making a mess here. Look at that. Look at that. And that's the thing, if you make a mess, it ends up on the balance and then it goes underneath the balance. And then it gets into the pan. Wow. Okay. This is why we don't do it while it's on the balance. So he's going to put a smallish amount on there to begin with. And we're just going to get an impression of how much he's actually added. That's about 0.1 that he's added so far. We need between 0.2 and 0.3. So he knows he needs to add about double what he currently has, and that's what he'll do. He'll look at that and he'll eyeball it, and he'll use about double what he has there. See, it doesn't have to be exactly anything, it just has to be between 0.2 and 0.3. That's why it's okay just to eyeball this. Even if we're outside that range a little bit, it's still okay, it's just a guideline. Okay, let's go ahead and try that out. That's great. That is between 0.2 and 0.3. So he's on the money, and we're ready to go with the sample. You'll notice also that he's closed the door again, and that will stop drafts coming through and messing up the result. So we're now going to add the KHP to the flask. You'll notice the flask is a bit wet, and that's okay. The flask can be wet. The flask we're using for the acid and base, though, when we initially collect them, can't be wet. They have to be dry, otherwise it messes with the molarities. But for this, we're going to be adding water to it anyway. So what he's done is he's added the KHP as much as he can. Now he's using the wash bottle here to rinse off the weighing boat. Can you show let's just show the weighing boat here. There we go. I mean, just like that. And what he's doing is just rinsing that off with the DI water. That's perfect. Yeah, just do that. That's great. Lovely. Right, now we're going to add 25 mils of water, DI water. And now we're going to add about, how many drops? About three, say two?
Maybe 2 drops.
2 drops of phenolphthalein, we'll do that. No more than 2. Alright, so it shouldn't change colour. If it does change colour, something's wrong. Now it actually doesn't have to completely dissolve, but we'll try and dissolve as much as we can of it before we start doing the titration. And you know what's going to happen is it's going to definitely dissolve as we proceed with the titration. So it'll be fine. Now we're going to leave that off to the side, and we're going to fill our burettes. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean the burettes with water. Now in the directions it says to use tap water first, then DI water. We'll just go ahead and use DI water. We'll do it twice. And all we're doing is just adding around 10 mils of water into that and just emptying it out. You don't have to fill it all the way. Now you might notice that you might have to turn that on a little bit more, please, Jim. Turn on a bit more. No, the stopcock. There we go. There you go, all the way. There we go, it's better. You might notice that the water might stop. If that's the case, it's probably because there's an air bubble in there, and then you can just give it a gentle tap and it should move down. The other thing that you might notice is that you might see the water slow down a lot as it gets to the bottom, and that's just because there's less weight on it, and of course it will slow down as it gets closer to the bottom of the burette. It doesn't mean the burette's blocked or anything like that. Alright, that's good. So we would do that twice. We're just showing that once. Now he's going to add the, we're going to put the acid in that one, right?
Yes.
So these are pre-labeled. One is labeled acid, the one on the left is labeled acid, the one on the right is labeled base, A, B, goes in alphabetical order. So A for acid, B for base, and he's going to go ahead and put the acid into the burette.
Now the acid should already be pre-labeled with the molarity of the acid.
That's right.
Make sure you take note of that.
Yeah, and the other thing is that this beaker that he's using here has to be dry. Before he puts it in, otherwise it messes with the molarity. So now he's going to go ahead and add that into the burette. But we're just using this to clean it out, and we're going to do this twice. So he's just going to put about 10 mils in, run it out twice, and then he's going to fill the burette. So he's going to do that twice, and then he's going to fill the burette, and we'll skip over to that part. So Jim's going ahead and filling this now, and you'll notice when he fills it, he's going to try and fill it to just below the funnel. Once it gets up to the funnel, it tends to decrease in volume a lot, and then the whole thing can overflow. So we're just going to do it somewhere below the funnel. Anywhere between 0 and 5 is probably fine to start with.
Right now we're roughly 1.5.
1.5. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Jim to bring down that burette so we can take a look at the measurement. And I want to give you some ideas about how to measure a volume on a burette. Now you've got to remember with burettes, what we're actually measuring is empty space. We're measuring a difference here. So what's going to happen is we're going to start at this point, then we're going to release a certain amount, and that's going to be the difference. And that will be the amount that was delivered. So you can see the measurement here is between 1 and 2. Just move it down a little bit, please. Okay, you can see it's between 1 and 2, and it numbers downwards. Now you can see where the bottom of the meniscus is. It's actually about between the 3rd and the 4th line. So if he holds it straight, can you hold it completely vertical, Jim? You'll see that it's about 1.35 is what my measurement would be. It'll always be measured to 2 decimal places. That's fine, we can put that back now. It'll always be measured to 2 decimal places. If it was on the line, let's say it was on the 4th line, it'd be 1.40, but that's how we're going to be always measuring these. So that's going to be the initial volume that you'll put down in your lab book. We're always going to measure from an initial volume, which doesn't have to be 0, by the way, and usually won't be. All right, we're going to go ahead and fill both the acid and the base. I just had Jim fill up the base here, and he's going to make sure that there's no air bubbles in that one. So what he's doing is he's just going to run a little bit out. There we go. Yeah, he's just going to run a little bit out, and just twist and turn the stopcock a couple of times, and that will enable us to make sure you don't have any air left in the burette, especially down the bottom. Could you point to the bottom part, please? Yeah, so it's the bottom part that you have to be most worried about. That's where you're often going to see air bubbles. But once you get rid of those, you're good to go. And you should obviously take your measurement after you've gotten rid of any air bubbles. All right, so we've got a measurement here as well. We're going to take an initial measurement on the base too. All right, so now we're going to do the actual titration. So this is the titration now, the KHP with the base. And you'll notice the technique here. We're okay with if we overshoot because we've got the acid there that we can back titrate with if we do overshoot. Now the overshooting will occur if we know that we've got a fairly dark purple solution.
If you notice when you add a little bit of the base, down here we can see the pink.
Oh yes, yeah, let's zoom in on that, and you can see the little bit of pink in the bottom here. And then of course when he swirls it, the pink goes away. Alright, so we're going to do that until the pink colour persists.
You can see now it's getting a little bit closer.
Now, we're going to actually purposely overshoot, and that's fine. See, now it's purple, right? So we're going to have to add some acid to that in order to back titrate it. And that's going to be part of our calculation. So remember that we've got acid in the other burette here. It's already pre-prepared. because we're counting on this needing to actually do the back titration. So we're adding acid now to this. Alright, it's getting pretty close. What I'd like you to do, Jem, is stop right there for a second and go ahead and rinse in some of that acid with the DI water. We're always allowed to add as much water as we like because water isn't acidic or basic. It's not going to affect the titration. Go ahead and see if you can put just one drop on the end, and then we'll rinse it in with the DI water.
So I'm slowly turning the stopcock until I can see a small drop begin to form.
That's good.
Then I
Now,
turn it back off.
now hang on, I'm going to zoom in, see if we can see that drop. Yeah, you can see a drop on the bottom there. Yeah, go ahead and let's rinse it in with the DI water. Alright, so that's all you did, was you just rinsed in that drop with the DI water. You know, that's pretty decent, isn't it? That's not a bad pink colour.
No, it's not.
So I think that's what we would stick with. Then what you would need to do is take measurements of both the final amounts of base and the final amounts of acid, so you knew exactly how much acid and base you added, so you can do your calculations.
And in the event you've added too much acid, made it turn colorless, you have to go back to the base side again until you get the proper pink color.
Right, so once you get that pink color, then you're done.